Hello, everybody. I'm Harvey Silverman, and welcome to edition 3 of Golf Business Live Tech Talks. That means that I'm still employed to do this. Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon aren't, but hey, that's another story. Today's edition is going to be particularly enlightening for a lot of our members because we're going to be talking about lightning. There's just more and more meaning to having protections and warnings put out to golfers on the course with whether it's lightning or severe storms or tornadoes, which are becoming a more common occurrence in some parts of the country. So today, our guest is Bob Dugan. Bob is the president and CEO of Thor Guard. I first experienced seeing Thor Guard in action at a golf course years ago in the White Mountains of Arizona, which is known as the most prolific lightning strike area of the country. And I was impressed with how their system was operated. I saw it in the back room with all the equipment and so on. And in fact, while I was there, the alarms went off because of an incoming storm and lightning was detected. I don't know exactly how many miles away, but this course was spread out over 3 miles from end to end, and golfers were rushing in for protection, showing me exactly how this thing worked. And I was impressed. I've always been kind of a weather nerd to begin with, and I thought this was pretty cool. So in today's world, looking at what Thor Guard is doing and how it's expanded its offerings, we thought it was a good time. We're in April, end of April, with storm season upon us, to have Bob talk to us a little bit about Thor Guard and what it can do for golf course operators around our country. Hey, Bob, welcome. Glad to have you.
Great to be here.
And first, give us a brief history of Thor Guard and your technology.
Well, thanks again for being here. I love talking to people about our technology and lightning in general. Thor Guard actually was created in 1973. It was a very high-tech piece of equipment at the time, complicated to read, and being an analog system, it was pretty slow. But for the 20 years after that, roughly, companies like Air Canada throughout Canada, Eastern Airlines, the Aerostat, Air Force, radar facilities around the country, and some explosive companies were using the Thor Guard system. In 1987, I was running a tournament in Chesterton, Indiana called the Northern Amateur. And it was a high-end tournament for amateurs, open to seniors, juniors. And I had met the inventor of Thor Guard along the way. And he had told me about his lightning prediction system, not detection, prediction. I played golf my whole life, fished my whole life, and there's no way on the face of the earth you could predict lightning. Can't be done. But he insisted, and I finally bit the bullet and said, okay, if you want to come all the way up here from Florida to set your system up at our tournament, that's fine. We're at the southern end of Lake Michigan, so storms can be a little precocious there. Mm-hmm. Second round of the tournament, we're about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He calls over and he says there's going to be a lightning strike. There's not a cloud in the sky anywhere. We don't have radar or anything that is sophisticated like today. So we actually did not believe him. And he called back a few minutes later and he was literally going berserk. You'd have to know him to understand what that means. So we ended up suspending play. Nobody had any idea why we were doing it. So nobody was in a hurry to get in. And 11 minutes after he first told us, lightning struck the 18th fairway, knocked 6 kids down.
Wow.
So it turned out later, the storm that strike came from, and that strike was a BOB. It was named before I got involved with the company, so don't think that I had anything to do with that. And that strike came from a storm in Waukegan, Illinois, which is 55 miles away.
Really?
And when I saw that, at the time I was working with Gary Loomis, developing his golf shafts, having a great time fishing with him, the whole 9 yards. when I saw this, it was like, gee, maybe this is something to get a little bit more involved in. So I ended up getting involved. In 2002, my partner, Peter Townsend, and I created the first system that actually we could sell to normal people. It was called the L100.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in Chicago at the time. And that system, we were invited to the Merit Club in Libertyville, Illinois. And that's kind of where, well, that's where USGA women's event was. I knew the superintendent pretty well, and he brought the system up to try it out during an LPGA Pro-Am before their event in Chicago that year, which Jane Geddes won. And he put me out in the middle of the field by a bathroom and said, just hide, don't tell anybody what you're doing, but if something comes up, let me know. There was no storms due until 11 that night. About 10:30, the system went off. I called everybody in, so we got to suspend play. Nobody believed it because there wasn't any thunder or lightning present anywhere. It was just some heavy overcast. And Alice Miller, as president, said, we're suspending. He's out here for a reason. Let's just do it. And about 15 or 16 minutes after they suspended play, lightning actually hit the superintendent's house about 100 yards from me on the corner of the golf course. So I ended up doing the LPGA event that weekend. They asked me to do it. This was actually the first time any kind of meteorological work was done at a golf tournament. Mm-hmm. And on that Saturday afternoon, after 2 thunderstorm delays, we had a third delay. The system was telling me something strange was going on, and I was letting the system teach me all these years, and I called a tornado warning. No watches, no warnings from NOAA, and tornado ended up passing a quarter mile north of the golf course and took out all the tents, which we had cleared because of that notification. So no damage, nobody got hurt. Then over the years, that's when we really started to get involved in golf. USGA came to us in 1995 because in 95 we started doing their meteorological work for all our events. And they asked if we could develop a simple to use device that they could provide all their state and local golf associations, about 100 of them. So we created our first digital system, which is called the L50. Very simple, 4 lights, no more information than that. That's all they wanted. System worked very well.
And it's portable, I assume?
Yeah, the sensor was our older metal sensor. It was kind of hard to move around, but the system itself was very easy. You plug in the sensor, you can find a place for the sensor, and then you're done with it. Mm-hmm. And that system became the bedrock for our next development because everybody said, hey, that's great, but I want to see more data. So we created an interface to run our horns. And that was called the Master Alarm Control. And that's when we first developed the idea of what we call lightning hazard levels, activity detectors, dynamic indexes. These are just things that were numbers, but they gave you an idea of what was going on around you. Then we decided we could make the system better, combining it into one box, and we developed the L150. Once again, it's a digital system with 2 boards in a metal box, 4 lights, but a screen. It gave you all the information you needed, could drive the horns, had dry contacts for other things. Then we decided, hey, we can take those 2 boards, turn it into one, and create an even more compact system, which would be easier for travel use, portable use. That was the introduction of the L75. All these systems were based on, at the time, Motorola processors, which were fast and very good. And at the time, our systems were now monitoring the atmosphere about 50 times a second, which was plenty, we thought. Then over the years, as more and more people wanted to use the system in a portable mode, we ended up creating what we call the hyperstatic assembly, which is an ASA plastic sensor that needed very little maintenance, was very light and small, and did a fantastic job. A lot of engineering went into that development. As the years progressed, and we learned more and more, and became even more ingrained with USGA and their events, it was time to come up with a new system because the Motorola processors weren't being made anymore. But we'd known that in 2010 and 11, but there was not an appropriate alternative for a processor that we thought was good for us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't make changes to make changes. We make changes to make improvements.
Mm-hmm.
So it took us 5 years to develop the TG360, which is our newest system. And it does everything. It was really a dream system that I'd had in mind for a long time. This system, using a 32-bit processor, now analyzes the atmosphere 170,000 times a second.
Wow.
And what that has done is it allowed us to virtually eliminate false alerts because we can now identify trends that aren't necessarily dangerous. And because of the amplifiers we now use, which have much more range, we're able to, with our algorithms we developed over 20 years in our observations, we could predict severe storms and we could predict tornadoes. Conversely, we could also let somebody know if they were in a severe storm warning area or tornado warning area, whether they were actually going to get the tornado or not. So they could relax if the system wasn't showing the energy necessary to produce a tornado or a severe storm. So
okay, let me interrupt for 1 second. I have a question. So you said that your system is analyzing the atmosphere 170,000 times a second. What area? I mean, you're a ground-based system. So when it's analyzing the atmosphere, how far out or up is that analyzing happening?
Okay, as a prediction system, we're actually analyzing the negative and positive ions in the atmosphere. And it's the ionization of the atmosphere that creates lightning, creates severe storms, creates tornadoes. And we monitor that depending upon the use of the customer out 20, 30 miles. So even though we're not going to shut down anybody because of lightning striking 10 miles or 8 miles or 15, which is what all detection systems do, we're looking at the energy that will create the lightning. So in the two situations I discussed early on, it wasn't the lightning that created our warning that brought the bolt out of the blue in. It was a huge influx of energy aligned in a very specific way that let the system know this doesn't belong here and this is not right. So what we do when we provide help to customers, whether it's an airport or golf course or giant park, we need to know from them how much time do your people need to get in.
Okay.
So what we do is we then set their system to provide 8 to 20 minutes, maybe 10 to 25, or in case of an airport or very small area, they only need 5 or 6 minutes. So the system will trigger when the energy aligns itself to the point where within that period of time, you're going to begin taking lightning within a 2 to 4 mile radius.
Okay. So originally, I mean, what I knew about Thor Guard and what I saw at this golf course with the sensor mounted on top of the clubhouse, which was at the highest elevation, fortunately, of the course, was lightning detection. You have progressed, and over the 20 plus years since I've seen it, quite rapidly to a predictive system, correct?
Not true. We have always been a predictive system.
Okay.
And the technology allowing us to predict, for instance, the speed that we can analyze the atmosphere and the amount of energy we can now see just has allowed us to do it better and better and faster.
Okay.
But the new system does also have, because everybody wanted it, its own detection system built in. That detection algorithm has been developed with our use during USGA events now for about 10 years. Because when we do a professional golf event or any kind of an event, amateur, whatever, we do need to know when lightning is striking 10, 15, 20, 30 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
We won't use that to shut down an event, but we will use that as a guide to let us know that those dark clouds on radar actually have electricity in them.
Mm-hmm.
So the detection system, the networks that we used, all the major networks, were not good enough for our use. They were inaccurate. They were slow. Even now, we still use the best networks available in different areas because they're all different depending upon where you are.
What networks are you talking about? You mean the Weather Bureau networks, or?
No, the lightning detection networks.
Okay.
They're all private. And
Okay.
some of our competition that tries to compete with us as a single site system still use those networks to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just could not use them doing the events we were doing. So it became mandatory. We figured something out, and we did. So our detection system, while the system is operating in prediction, it will tell the customer he had lightning 8 miles away or 12 or 14. And if the sensor could see the flash, we could give them direction to the lightning strike. They don't use that to shut down, but they use it as a guide to let them know when they're, let's say, at a caution or warning, why they're at a caution or warning.
Okay.
And if they're at a caution and warning and you don't see any lightning, then they realize that they've got a storm forming overhead and they're in a situation of a first strike scenario.
Interesting. So for a golfer, you're talking about the events that you're doing, and like I asked and assumed before, you that's more of a portable system. But for a golf course that's installing your system permanently, what are the infrastructure requirements for that to happen and for that to work?
Well, for the TG360, we use the same system that we sell to our customers. It is portable enough that we can set it up from event to event. But when we get to a customer's hard install, it's basically the same as we did before. We find a good site for the sensor so we can see the surrounding areas. And of course, we have a horn, strobe light usually with it. That would also be on the roof because that system has a transmitter in it if we need to send a signal out to remote horns. So a typical 18-hole golf course with 150 acres would usually have 2 remote horns and a base horn.
Mm-hmm.
We send the signal out to the remotes via RF. They're all solar powered, so we're not connected to any wires from the golf course.
Okay.
That not only allows the battery to go and last much longer, but it keeps us out of any interference that may occur from a lightning strike hitting irrigation wires, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a computer, and we have software that the base software for the computer allows the customer or us from a distance to go in and change hours of operation, do tests, do a number of other things. Then the data is sent out. We host a URL which shows the customer all the lightning data, all the weather data, and live radar on one screen. And we're just about to come out with a new app. It's done, waiting for final approval, where individuals at the club or club personnel can go to Google and download either an Android version or an Apple version.
Mm-hmm.
Then they can select their own notices, what they want to be notified at, rather than having our computer do it and going through the cloud. Then when they get a notification, at the bottom of the screen, there's a button they push and they can see the URL live. So if they're at a warning, they'll be able to bring up all that information I just spoke about, and they'll know exactly what's coming.
Gee, it's like you're reading my list of questions here. That was my next question: is how is the staff notified of incoming threats? So that can
Well, I
either
saw that before you started the interview.
okay. Oh, all right.
Have
Okay.
spies.
Okay. But what you're telling us then is, either computer based or now soon to have a mobile app based method of alerting staff as to what's happening or giving them better vision on what's happening in the atmosphere and on incoming or outgoing weather systems.
Yeah, and then in some areas like Southwest Florida, Chicago, Tulsa, we have networks of Thor Guards set up from 11 to 29. And on that app, if there's a network, they can also get notifications from the network. That allows them to see the entire migration of the storm through the whole area and how it's affecting specific clubs or schools or wherever those sensors are along the way.
Mm-hmm.
During football season, for instance, down here at Collier County Schools, they live by that. They don't necessarily wait for their horns to blow to notify them there's going to be a red alert. They'll get notification and they'll look and see where the radar image is showing the storm is coming from. Then they'll look at the Thor Guards in that neck of the woods and they'll see them start to grow, which will allow them to plan much better so they can give 20, 25 minutes warning to get people out of the stands and still have basically 100% probability they're going to get that storm.
Wow.
Which is what they want. They don't want to pull everybody down or out just
Sure.
because they think there's going to be lightning.
Right. Interesting. So that's where you have Thor Guards, where you have a congregation of Thor Guards in an area. Those are all networked and become even a larger predictive system than just a singular system sitting at the stadium.
Correct. The way the new app will work in a network is they will pick, let's say, I want to be notified of a warning. And it will tell them when any one of those sensors go to warning. Then they can go to the URL, which shows the map, and they can see which ones are red or green or yellow or whatever the case may be. Then they can click on the specific one that may be yellow or red, and then they'll see the entire URL show up.
Okay.
It's a very, very strong management tool.
Fascinating. So from a golf course owner perspective, golf course operator perspective, this is a little off from the technology itself, but does a golf course operator gain any insurance advantages by having Thor Guard installed at the course?
There are insurance companies that do require their customers to have a lightning warning system.
Okay.
We aren't necessarily happy with the way that is put forth to a lot of these customers because it gives them the option to go out and get something that's not satisfactory because it's cheap. That's a mistake when it comes to safety and lightning.
Sure.
And the reason that the TG360 exists today the way it is, we wanted to include everything that a customer could possibly need, and then have our own minds open, which has happened over the 3 years the system's actually been in the field, to suggestions from people. The app is a suggestion from one of our customers. And we said, okay, we'll take a look at it and see if we can do it. And we decided, you know what, that's a good idea. Let's do it. So the system is constantly able to evolve. We can update them when we get new information, particularly from tornadoes, without ever having to interfere with the customer's operations.
So when I see technologies like yours that have so much value, at least in my mind, to a golf course operator, you mentioned that there's probably some cheaper options out there, which, might answer the question of why aren't more golf courses installing Thor Guard, especially in areas of the country, pretty much, I guess, east of the Rockies where more severe storms happen. I mean, I'm out here in California and, we don't You know, when we have anything having to do with lightning out here, it becomes like a big party. Everybody gets out on their decks to watch the lightning storms and stuff, and it's like it's so unusual. You know, and certainly I don't think courses out here would even consider, although that there is the U.S. Open in Los Angeles this year. I don't know if your system will be installed there or not, but
Yeah, we'll be there.
Okay. So, you know, what is it? What when you or your salespeople are in front of a golf course operator who's inquiring about Thor Guard, why are they saying no?
You know what? That's a very good question. I think looking back historically, since I've been doing this for about 33 years, private clubs seem to be far more willing to spend the money than public courses.
Okay.
It's just been the way it is. And there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it other than all I can think is to save money. That they don't want to spend that money if they don't feel they have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's not really doing a service to their customers.
Right.
But I don't want to criticize the people I'm speaking to because they're all in the business, obviously, to provide a great experience in the golf course for an affordable price. But part of that experience should also include safety. And I think that over the years, you know, we really opened this market up for our competition. Back when I started, we had no competition. When the company started, it had no competition. And over the years, we developed a marketplace and everybody jumped in, but everybody jumped in with detection systems. And whenever I give speeches, and I give a lot of them, I'm not selling Thor Guard, but talking about weather, lightning in general. Everybody understands before I explain it what lightning prediction is. Oh, you mean you read the charges in the atmosphere? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you do that because you obviously don't want to wait till a strike occurs before you give a warning. It's so basic that it is hard to understand why people don't always get that, because you cannot predict lightning from a lightning detection network or a system. All you can do is forecast. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference between a forecast is not a database decision-making tree. Prediction is a database prediction-making tree. The big difference between the technologies.
So if I was a course operator in parts of the country that are susceptible to storms and lightning, and I had Thor Guard installed at my course, as a marketing person, I'd be marketing the heck out of that. I mean, I'd be letting people know, look, the safest place for you to play golf all spring, all summer, whenever, is my course, because we have a prediction system that will keep you safe. I don't know if that is something that can be guaranteed. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit, but at least I'd be letting people know I've got a safer place to play because we have Thor Guard technology that's letting us know when bad weather might happen.
There are no guarantees when it comes to Mother Nature.
Yeah.
But I think the lightning statistics reveal a very interesting point here. Since about 1950, when these records were really looked at and put into a record-keeping file, 100 people a year were killed by lightning between 1950 and about 2000. Mm-hmm. And 500 plus injured. The reporting wasn't really good, so those numbers are probably on the low side. But by 2000, 2003, we had a competitor come back into the market, and the number of systems, ours mostly at the time, and probably still today, were everywhere. So the amount of square miles that our systems were covering began to grow significantly and kept growing and growing. And then in about 2015, and anybody that had to suffer through statistics in college, or like I did, in 2015, deaths dropped to 30 a year from 100.
Wow.
And the last 5 years, we have not exceeded 30 deaths. The 30 deaths of interest occurred by roofers or people out in the forest, places where there was not a lightning warning system.
Mm-hmm.
So these systems have made a significant difference in people's safety.
Sure. So, okay. So again, as a marketing person, I'm thinking I want people to know that I've got a safer place to play. What do you see coming down the road for your technology and others that you may be tying into as far as weather prediction?
Well, I think as our networks grow, we'll have more and more of the multi-system networks available for people. Chicago will still be a big market, South Florida, and Oklahoma. And of course, Oklahoma is tornadoes, so that's a good place to have a good network in place.
Mm-hmm.
But we're about to release a new system. It'll probably now be August. It's been hard to get parts. That will be very much a mobile system with no horns, no weather station, but it will have all the prediction capabilities of our current system, detection capabilities without being able to give direction, and even greater ability to see major storm situations like severe storms and tornadoes. So one of the purposes is to be on tornado chasing trucks that we've been asked, as you can imagine, by many to create.
Sure. If a course has its own app, that people are using for GPS or for scoring or whatever, would you be able to tie into something like that would light up the phone, even with some sound, possibly if they have the sound on, to let the golfer know individually that there's something happening?
They can get the app. It's free. But if they have club car cards, then we send a message to the carts when the system goes to red alert that lets them know pre-red alert that there's a danger of lightning coming. They have to acknowledge it, then they can keep playing. But then it goes to red alert. They have to acknowledge it, and they don't get any more yardages anymore. They have to come in. We are working with Club Car right now to try and get our URL with the radar, the weather, and the lightning into the carts, because they can do that now. If they have EasyGo, we interface with EasyGo. The message is the same or very similar, but they don't have the content capability that the Visage and Club Car has.
Okay, that's interesting. What I was speaking to, though, yes, you have an app that people can download themselves, but I'm talking about where the course has its own app, and whether that could tie in to your app. So they're just looking at one program, one app in front of them, which they have open during the round, rather than having to switch back and forth.
No, we probably wouldn't do that.
Okay. Any other, 5 years out, where do you see Thor Guard and your technology?
Well, I think within 2 years, and as you can see, I'm not 30 years old anymore. So in 2 years, we'll have the new system, which we call the Neptune, done. And then next year, we'll have the second system coming out, which will be based off the Neptune, but able to drive horns, just like the L75 and the 150 used to do. That system will be called the Nomad. Any developments or new things that may pop up in between would be unplanned and created because someone came to us with a very specific need that we needed to take something we had and make something very specialized to work just for them and their environment.
Okay, that's interesting. Bob, this has been great. Like I said, I've always been kind of a weather nerd, so I'm the first guy to be opening up weather radar out here when something's happening. and drives my family nuts. But I get it. I've played enough golf when I was growing up and playing golf in the Minneapolis market to have dodged storms, including a couple tornadoes. So I think what you do and what you provide for golf courses and golfers is an exceptional technology. I just want to remind everybody, Thor Guard is a NGCOA corporate member, and website's easy to find, thorguard.com. And Bob, here's your last chance at a sales pitch.
I hope everyone learned something from our discussion here, because that's the basic purpose of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about what we do. I have been since I got involved with the company. And knowing everything that's on the market today, I think we are the world-class leader, not only in technology and what we do. And I hope that some of the golf owners will take a look at this and understand that this is a worthwhile subject to broach at the club. And I hope they do. But I thank you for the time to do this.
Bob Dugan, President and CEO of Thor Guard, thank you very much for being our third guest on Golf Business Live Tech Talks. And we hope that we're going to catch up with you again soon.
Harvey, thank you very much for your time, and good luck to everybody this year in their business ventures.
Very good. Thanks, Bob. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you're in an area right now that's showing storm warnings and you're only looking at your weather radar from the local TV stations, you got to know that there's something better out there, and your golfers, you're responsible. You have a certain responsibility to protect their lives, and Thor Guard can help you do that. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again next month. Take care. Bye-bye.